it was Dabo Swinney trending over the weekend, not for anything on the field in the orange-white game, but for a wide-ranging interview with ESPN's Chris Lowe, which allowed him to be able to dial in or express some of his thoughts on the leadership of college football, super conferences, name, image, and likeness, professionalization of college athletes, why coaches are paid so much. It was a lot, Tom. What stood out to you before we get into like what some of the reaction was? I just wanted to say, like, as you read this, how did you digest it?
You know what? This is going to come as a shock. But as I read the entire interview and article, I was a lot less bothered by it based on what everybody on social media was, just off of the one paragraph of text that was mostly the one shared about how much he and Nick Saban make compared to, like then going into the like comparing it to Delta's CEO and baggage handlers, which I agree. He probably could have gone with a better comparison because I feel like comparing Deshaun Watson to a baggage handler is probably not really what the actuality of the situation is. But if you read the entire interview, there's nothing new in there as far as that Dabo hasn't said a billion times already. The overall gist is he doesn't like where things are right now because there's like no rules. Everybody's just kind of free to do whatever the hell they want to do. Everybody's playing different rules. He's against the professionalization of college football, but while people take that as he's against players getting paid, that's not what he means. He's against players being paid exclusively, and that's all that matters. Like the college aspect of it is no longer important. He just wants there to still be an emphasis on education while players are getting paid, because as he says many times in this interview and in answer to many questions, he's all for NIL. And he even goes on about how Clemson is one of 3 programs with over 1 million Twitter followers. So he's like, of course I'm into NIL because I think Clemson has something to sell these kids if they want to come here. And he's thrilled because, as he mentions, 98% of these kids aren't going to be playing in the NFL. So if they have a chance to make money now while they're in college and they have the platform, he's all for it. But again, it's the comparison to Saban and Dabo and all the coaches making so much more money than the players, which I agree with everybody else in their reaction to that. But I think that too often when you look at scenarios like this, like, let's be honest, not many of the people who were bothered by what Dabo said would turn down a raise at their own job because somebody else in the company's making less money.
Yeah, the phrases that got highlighted and shared over and over on social media included him making reference to our capitalist society, that he is in favor of the free market. And the reason why he is paid so much money, the reason why Nick Saban is being paid so much is because of the free market system that dictates what their value is. And that is being compared to the fact that college athletics is not a true free market society. And that's where some people are finding the contradiction. But dragging Dabo is like an old, I mean,
why are we asking Dabo to be an expert on capitalism and freaking market inefficiencies? Like, he's a football coach. Like, we're getting mad at the coach instead of the system.
Why'd we have to come in here with all this sense? Why'd we have to come in here? We would get way more shares and likes if we came in with some outrage. But I think that asking Dabo Swinney to be this, Dabo Swinney has not even been on the top of the sport for that long. No. Dabo, this has been in the process of how long some of these other coaches have been around, the ones that are tenured, the ones that we do look to be the voice of college football, or to be some sort of overarching leader for the entire sport. Like Dabo Swinney was still promising a stadium full of pizza to his fans. And that was 7 years ago. You can't trust somebody who promised pizza that he wasn't sure he was going to be able to come up with, that he's going to be able to look past this. He is in charge of the Clemson football program and winning as many games as he can, of being able to recruit players to that program and help them go on to other parts of their life. And this is the one thing that I'm starting to wrestle with, because I do think that it is misconstrued a lot. I don't want to say I support, but I understand that Dabo wants to make sure that the academics are not totally eliminated from this. And I understand that draws a lot of eye roll from
Mhm.
people who believe that because of the widespread evidence of fraudulent classes, fake curriculums, things that have been established in order to allow college football players to essentially get through their time in college without having to experience the academic rigors that the rest of the university population gets to. But there's something about the university experience that I do think has value. And there's something about the university experience that allows for the college football player to have that full, like, go to a classroom that doesn't just have college football players. You
Yeah.
know, like, meet new people that are outside of the place where you grew up and went to high school and that are not on your football team. And those experiences do have a lot of value. And so I don't I don't know quite how to wrestle with this, but I think that I too hope that, if we move forward to a place where the universities are paying players, not just allowing them to get name, image, and likeness, but taking a shaving off of those millions of dollars that are coming in from the television revenue and allowing that to be dispersed to the athletes that are helping generate that revenue. If we get to that place, I do hope that we are allowing for college football players, 18 to 22-year-olds, to still have those experiences of of choosing to go to classes, of choosing to engage with the university populace, because I think that that has like a human value that I agree I don't want to see taken away from the college football experience.
Yeah, and Dabo even mentions that too. Like in one of the answers, like he talks about the importance of the education, but he also uses like the word connectivity. That is kind of like what you're saying, just to be able to interact and develop those kind of connections with other people at the school. Because, like, you can always counter it saying we can't pretend like coaches are pretending that the education matters when a lot of these kids are funneled into like majors that really don't mean much of anything. It's just these are classes you could pass so we can keep you eligible. And for some players, like guys with NFL futures, they do that and there's a sense to it. But on the other end, getting a college degree, like how many of people do you know have a college degree who actually work in the field for where they got their degree? So, like, what was more important to them? Going to college, getting the degree, getting the experience from it, and making the connections to help move on post college into your adult life, or being a specific degree and then working in that specific category. So, there is a value to getting a college degree, whether you think that degree is valuable or whether you want to compare it to what other degrees are. But I know some people with law degrees. I know some people with English degrees who are all very much in the same boat right now and doing the same exact job. So again, what does that degree really mean other than, hey, you met certain requirements to get this piece of paper?
Where when Dabo's really starting to take aim at the like you mentioned, there's no rules with NIL. Why do you think that he has targeted the name, image, and likeness? Again, it's something that he says multiple times in this interview,
Mhm.
that he supports NIL, and he even talked about, he said Clemson football has 1 million followers, or one of 3 programs in the country to have 1 million followers. They have, some of these guys on the team have a bigger platform right now than they will ever have in their entire lives, and so he supports them being able to profit off of that. Do you think that it is the recruiting, the inducement side of this? Like, what are going to be the pieces that you think he's hoping are going to end up being changed?
I think Dabo's fine with NIL. I think he would just like there to be some sort of uniform rules. And that's another thing he talks about in the interview too, is how he thinks that we're moving in a direction where 50 schools are kind of going to break off and form their own college football league, and they're going to play by their own rules because, as he said, it's like Alabama and Middle Tennessee exist in entirely different worlds. You can't ask them to play by the same rules when they are doing such drastically different things and competing for such drastically different things. And I think that his ultimate hope is not so much don't pay the players, just give them degrees, which is how it's going to be painted by a lot of people. I even saw in our own comments, people who have been listening to the show are summarizing what we're saying is Dabo hates NIL, which is so far off of what we've been saying. But I think that it's just a situation where he just wants he wants to know what the rules are, and he wants everybody to be playing by the same rules. And he doesn't want it to be, we're just going to pay these kids to be here, school be damned. He wants them to still incentivize education while also paying the players what they can get and what they would be worth, which I don't think is a terrible thing. I think that's kind of what most people want. It's just he didn't say it in the same exact way that everybody else is saying it. So we have to jump down his throat. Personally, if I'm a Clemson fan, the most problematic thing I read in that interview was Dabo's approach to the transfer portal, which here's the quote, because he was asked, what about your taking transfers? And he said, quote, my transfer portal is right there in that locker room, because if I'm constantly going out every year and adding guys from the transfer portal, I'm telling all those guys in that locker room that I don't believe in them and I don't think they can play. We're also not doing our job as coaches and recruiters if we're bringing in a bunch of transfers. I agree. You probably, if you're a development program, you don't want to be bringing in 50 transfers a year, but I still think that, you should probably be pay a little more attention to the transfer portal than that, especially seeing yesterday, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about this later too, a couple former highly rated recruits from Georgia, offensive linemen, hit the transfer portal. You know who has a need on the offensive line?
I do.
I'm saying Clemson maybe should be paying some attention to that transfer portal right now, because there might be something in there they could use.
Do you think that there is a way to, again, the screenshots, the way that it took off on Twitter and social media, do you think that there's a way that everybody's going to be able to come together on this, where universities could be paying players in a new world of college football while also having the ability for them to go to classes, be students, and obtain an education? Do you see that from those who support the pay the players initiative, they almost want them as employees, where the only thing they do is show up to the university and play football and then move on with the rest of their life? I don't know how to blend those two, because I support the idea that they make some share off of the millions of dollars of television revenue, which they are not even now in the name, image, and likeness era. But at the same time, I don't know how to bridge that gap right now.
I have no idea. Yeah, it's just hard to think that anybody right now is going to be able to solve this, because it's a really complicated issue. And what complicates it even further is that there's 100 years of history of doing it a different way. So as we've seen, not just in sports, but just in the country in general, anytime we do something for a long time and then it dawns on us that we've probably been doing it wrong and we need to change it and we need to figure out a new way to do it, takes a really long time for us to go through that process and figure it out. So which is why I think, kind of to what Dabo was saying, the most likely outcome, I would say, of what the future looks like is that certain schools and conferences just break off on their own to form their own thing and just start from quote unquote scratch about how they want to do things, how they want to implement things, and how they want to regulate things. And I think that is a very likely outcome, to which we could see the Power Five conferences just forming a new quote unquote college football league.
Would we have to draw straws on who does the live blogs for the minor league? How does the CBSSports.com team get broken up when we're deciding live blogs for the major league college football and the minor league college football on a Saturday?
I will say, as a college football fan, I don't think it would be good, because I do think it would pretty much just kind of relegate the other conferences to like FCS status, which I know some people really like FCS football, but there's not a whole lot of people who pay super close attention to FCS football. But as far as an employee and a career perspective, it would be nice to have to concentrate on a lot fewer teams than we're supposed to already, just as far as managing our time.
Yeah. Well, listen, try them 358 that they're doing over there in college basketball. I'm just glad that by the time I transition over there from my little moonlighting 3 months, they've already whittled down the teams that matter to like 120.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit more of a manageable thing. But, and to your point on the transfer portal, and this falls in line kind of with my reaction to a lot of this, I'm not surprised that that's what Dabo thinks.
No.
You want to know why I'm not surprised? Because the man hasn't made an outside hire. He lost his offensive coordinator, his defensive coordinator, his offensive line coach transitioned to an off-field role. His defensive line coach left with his defensive coordinator, and the man just looked around the building and was like, all right, Adam, Wes, all right, y'all, come on down. Come on down the slide.
In a strange way, Dabo is a victim of Clemson's success, in that if he was doing everything he's done at Clemson, minus the national titles and all that stuff, But at like a mid-level Power 5 kind of development program, we would talk about what a great coach he is. But since he's doing these things that kind of go against the grain of what you're supposed to do to compete for national championships for a program that has won national championships, everybody's kind of like, what the hell is this guy doing? He's an idiot. So it's a weird balance. Like, I don't know if Clemson can continue competing for national titles in the transfer portal and NIL era if it keeps trying to do things the more traditional developmental program, develop the human kind of approach that it has taken. But I don't know if maybe that's the most important thing to Dabo Swinney.
Um, he did also have some lines in there that were like, "Hey, we're not going to win it every year." You were talking about like some quotes that might jump out to a Clemson fan, like, "What?
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about?" He's like, "Look, we're not going to win the ACC every year. We just need to consistently put ourselves in position so that we could win the ACC every year." And after we won the ACC every single season from 2015 to 2021, I imagine that there is a sub generation, not an entire generation, but a sub generation of Clemson fans that's like, "Well, what do you mean we're not going to win it every year?"
I thought that's what we did. I thought
I
we were
bet,
the greatest program of all time.
yeah, I thought that that's what we did.